Right, good morning. Thanks for joining us today at this webinar. It's great to have so many of you book on. Just to introduce myself, I'm Sophie Short. I handle the marketing and communications here at Social Enterprise Mark. I also have my colleague Kerry Ann here with us, who's covering for Rachel while she's on maternity leave, covering the business development side of the organisation. Do you want to introduce yourself, Kerry?
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. Apologies, I'm getting over a cold, so I sound a little bit blocked. But yeah, happy to see so many mark holders. Great to meet you.
Thanks, Kerry. Also, we've got joining us today is Julie Hawker from Cosmic and Kate Welch from Social Enterprise Acumen. They are both Social Enterprise Mark ambassadors and long-term mark holders. They're joining us. They're going to be speaking a little bit later to share their experience of how they make the most of their mark. So great to have you both here. Thanks for joining us. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. So I've got some slides prepared. I'm trying to make it not death by PowerPoint. Please do feel free to put questions in the chat or just pipe up if you want to as we're going along. If there's any questions you want to ask, that's fine. I don't think we've got time for everyone to do introductions, but please do feel free to do that in the chat if you'd like to, and share links to your LinkedIn, that sort of thing, that's fine. Okay, so I'll share my screen now. Can you all see that okay? Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So just a brief agenda. First, I was just going to go over what it means for you to be accredited. And when we say accredited, we're talking about all of our accreditations, not just the Social Enterprise Mark. I think most of you attending probably are Social Enterprise Mark holders, but we also have our aspiring Social Enterprise accreditation and our Gold Mark accreditation, as well as our Specialist Disability Employment Mark accreditation. So when I talk today about any of the marks or any of the accreditations, I'm sort of talking about all of them. And then we'll go through some quick tips on how you can use your accreditation. So go through some simple ideas and give some examples of how you can make the most of your mark. And then also look at how we can support you to do that. And then after that, we'll hear from Julie and Kate and also have some time for some Q&A. But as I said, please do feel free to pop your hand up or put some questions in the chat as we're going through. I think Kerry Ann's going to keep an eye on that and let me know if there's any questions as we're going through. Okay, so firstly, what does it mean to be accredited? So when you gain one of our accreditations, you're basically getting external verification of your social enterprise credentials. So it's not just your organisation saying you are a social enterprise. The difficulty with the term social enterprise is that it's not a form of business in itself. So these businesses can take a lot of different different formats. So it can be limited by shares, CIC, that sort of thing. And there's no actual regulation of the sector. So anyone could technically call themselves a social enterprise without necessarily adhering to the principles of the business model. So it's a stamp of approval, if you like, proof that you've been through that external assessment process, and an accreditation authority, which is ourselves, has assessed you against some sector agreed criteria that sort of sets out what it means to be a social enterprise, and you've been proven to meet that criteria. And you're also meeting recognised standards of good practice. So these are standards that have been developed with the sector. Every time at the very start, when the social enterprise mark was first developed, that was done in consultation with the sector. So we just didn't decide the criteria on our own. That was very much a collaborative effort to make sure that that criteria was representative of what social enterprise is. And each time we've developed our standards, that's also been done in consultation. So you can show to customers and partners and stakeholders that you are meeting those standards of good practice that are recognised by the sector. And you also are part of a supportive community. So we have an international network of, I think it's around 165 mark holders now. This changes all the time because we're always welcoming new mark holders on board. And they're from all over the world. The majority of mark holders are in the UK, but we do have customers across Europe, some in the States as well, and Asia. So we encourage mark holders to make the most of the community and support each other, use each other where you can in procuring your own services. So we always encourage mark holders to work with each other where they can. And quite often we'll signpost mark holders to each other. People may get in touch with us and say, do you know another social enterprise that does X, Y, and Z? And we'll then signpost them to another mark holder, because it's important, obviously, as social enterprises, that we embed social enterprise in our own supply chains. So that's really important. So that's just a few ways, just a few examples of what it means to be accredited. So now I'm going to move on to some quick and simple tips that you can apply to make the most of your mark. Just to say before I start on this, that we do have a number of marketing toolkits and templates which you all should have access to. If you don't, please feel free to either say so in the chat or get in touch with us afterwards, and we'll be happy to share those with you. I have put together a follow-up email that will come out to everyone after this event, which shares links to any of the documents that I mentioned, so you should be able to access it that way. So the first example is to add the mark to your website, which is hopefully a fairly simple thing to do. If you don't have access to update your website yourself, this should be something that your IT company can help you with, hopefully. And I've just shared a few examples here of ways some mark holders have done this. So the example shown, so the black and white one here is Waterman's, which is a cinema in southwest London. So they've got a little thing in the footer on their website to show that they're a social enterprise, and that then they've used the mark there. Similar with Care Opinion. And then with Thanet, I included this one because that's a slightly different way of doing it, where they have an actual page for their awards and accreditations. Or it may be that you have a page on your website about being a social enterprise to explain what that means, and that would be another good place to mention your accreditation. But ideal places we find it is somewhere that's a constant part of your website, so a header or a footer that displays on every page of the website, like a lot of these examples. And then where you put the mark on your website also be really useful to link back to our homepage, which is there on the screen. This because obviously then the visitor can get a lot more information on what that mark means, and also it helps us build our community as well, which in turn then makes the marks more widely understood, which is a benefit to us all. And another way you can use your mark is to display your plaque. So when you are first approved, you should have been sent a physical plaque. Here's an example here. We do have some of these still available in the office here. So if you don't have a plaque or you need any more, then please do get in touch and we'll be happy to send those out to you. The only accreditation that I don't think there are plaques for as yet is the aspiring social enterprise accreditation, but we definitely have some here for social enterprise mark and the gold mark, as well as the disability employment mark. So this is especially important if you have a physical office or a shop front, that you can pop that on the wall and show to everyone that you are a social enterprise and you know you've met those standards and you've been approved as a social enterprise. And this photo here of the group with their plaque, that was a nice little thing that a mark holder shared on social media. I think it's when they had their last renewal, and it was just a nice way of celebrating that they shared a photo of them all with their plaque. So that's quite a nice idea. And then shouting about your mark on social media, this is definitely something that we'd encourage, and then we'd always also share this for you as well with our network. So if when you post anything about your mark, you tag us in to that, then we'll be able to reshare and get that added reach for you. We're active on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook and Instagram. Again, if you need our social enterprise tags, then please do get in touch and I'll be happy to share those with you. These are just a few examples here. I think all of these were taken from Twitter. One might be from LinkedIn, but it's just a few examples of how people have shared news about their accreditation. So we obviously encourage people, once they're first approved, to shout about this on social media, and what we do is we do lots of shout outs to welcome new mark holders, as well as each time you renew your license, we'll do a shout out and tag you on social media. So we encourage you to then share those or do your own posts. It's just a way of celebrating and helping to spread the word about that. And you can also use our hashtags. So our main hashtag for the social enterprise mark is SE_mark, or for the gold mark is SE_gold mark. Again, these are all things that are in the marketing toolkit that we'll share after the event today. But yeah, this just gives a good idea of how you can do that. A couple of these posts that I've shared here were people that were new mark holders, so they were sharing about that. But the one in the middle, Bardock, who are quite a long-standing mark holder, I think that they did this at the point of renewing their license. So it was just a nice post to get out there to explain that they are a social enterprise and what that means, and then that's backed up by the social enterprise mark. So just some ideas for you there. And just a few other ideas here on places you can use the mark. So an example there is a social impact report that the University of Northampton produced, and they included a section in there about having the social enterprise gold mark. Either social impact reports, annual reports, or I know a lot of people use it in bidding for contracts as well, because it's a good way to back up your social value claims. So it can be useful when bidding for contracts to sort of show that you've been externally assessed by an independent body and that you're proven to be creating social value. Also, there's an example there in the middle of Jericho, where they provide, one of their social enterprises does catering services. So that's just an example of one of their leaflets there, where they've got the mark down there in the bottom right corner. And then this was a nice little example that I thought I'd include is a video that was created by one of our new mark holders in Ireland, Community Finance Ireland, which they put together to share to celebrate their accreditation. So I'll just play this for you quickly. Hopefully it'll work.
It's an international award-winning accreditation authority, and it recognises the capabilities of social enterprises as sustainable businesses and that are dedicated to maximising social impact. The benefits of a social enterprise mark for CFI is that it sets out clear standards for us and enhances our dedication to achieving meaningful social impact, and that our profits continue to be reinvested back into local communities. The mark itself recognises the value of our social impact, in particular with the clients that we work with across the social enterprise sector, including sport, arts and heritage, community organisations, faith and church groups, and also within the workspace provision. Holding the mark as well demonstrates that CFI has effective governance controls, stakeholder engagement, financial transparency, and ethical and good business practices, which is of particular importance to me as Community Finance Ireland's compliance officer.
Okay. Hopefully you could all hear that okay. And it had subtitles as well. That was just quite a nice example to include, because it's very recent as well. But it always is nice if you can do any video content, because I think it's very engaging, and it helps to get across the message in that engaging way. So feel free to let us know if you wanted any support with that, or if you wanted us to provide any content for that, or any quotes for any of that, and we'd be happy to help with that.
1 second, Sophie. I thought I heard someone maybe wanted to ask a question before you started on that slide.
Okay.
Maybe
Is there anyone that wanted to come in?
No. Okay. Maybe it was just brief unmute. Okay, thanks.
Was there any questions coming through on the chat, Kerry, about any of that?
No, we haven't had any questions.
Okay.
But please feel free to continue to introduce yourselves and share your links and LinkedIn profiles. That's
Great.
awesome.
Okay, thanks, Kerry. Yeah, please do feel free to jump in and stop me at any point if you want to ask any questions. We will have plenty of time for questions later on as well. So now I just wanted to talk quickly about how we can help you and how we can support you in making the most of your accreditation. One way is we will always share your news and events. We have a weekly news bulletin which goes out every Friday, and that goes out to all our mark holders as well as our wider social enterprise network. And also we share news posts on our website, and we have an events calendar so we can pop your events on there, and all of this is also shared extensively across our social media. So if you have any news and events, you can either send that to myself, or you can send it to our marketing mailbox, which is marketing@socialenterprisemark.org.uk. Again, all of this will be in the follow-up email as well, so you don't need to worry about jotting it all down. And also I've just given an example there on the screen that just shows the news posts on our website. So we add those all the time, and that's available as a newsreel from our homepage as well as the actual news page. And that's an example there of the weekly newsletter. We can also share case studies. So we've put together a series of questions which we send to you, and you send that back to us with the details, and ideally with maybe a couple of photos, a video if you've got it. And we will then put together a case study, which we will share on our website, which is just a great way to showcase you as a mark holder. And then that will also be shared in our newsletter and across our social media. We also host guest blogs on our website. So we have our managing director, Lucy, does a fairly regular blog, but we also have a guest blog section as well, where quite often mark holders, sometimes it's partners as well from the sector, will write about a topic that they're interested in, or something that they want to raise awareness of. And we can host that on our website. And again, that will be shared extensively across our social media and in the newsletter. As I mentioned before, we have a number of toolkits and resources. These are always shared at the point of initial approval. I think we also share links to them at the point of annual renewal as well. We have a resources page on our website where all of these things can be downloaded. As I said earlier, I will share the link to those in the email following this event today. Yes, Kerry?
Hi, Sophie. There is a question, and the question is, how do we get involved in hosting a guest blog?
Great. Okay. Well, basically all you need to do is just get in touch. So either email myself, the contact details I'll show at the end of the slides, or the marketing email address, and just let us know really what it is you would be interested in blogging about, and then you can put something together, or we can support you to put something together, and then we'll get that on our website. So it's fairly simple, really.
Great, thank you.
Great. Where was I? Yeah, toolkits and resources. So yeah, we'll share links to all those later. And the toolkits do cover a lot of what I've skipped through today, but in a bit more detail than I'm going into today. And then we also have some templates, so things like press release templates, for example, for when you're first awarded the mark. That's useful if you want to sort of try and get some local news coverage. That would be great. And then we also have our online directory. So every single mark holder, anyone that's accredited by us with any of our marks, is included in our online directory, which is one of the most viewed pages on our website. So it is a way that your organisation can be visible to people searching for social enterprises. So each of you have a listing on there. So I would suggest that you go and have a look on the directory and find your profile. If there's anything at all that you would like to change, again, all you need to do is let us know and we can update that for you. You can add multiple images to your listing, and there's also the function where we can add a video as well as all your links to your social media and website and stuff like that. So please do take a look at the directory. Again, we'll be sharing a link in the email to follow. And yes, please do get in touch if you'd like to update that, because it is an important thing to keep up to date, I think, because it is such a popular page on our website. Okay, so that's the end of that section. Is there any other questions from anyone? Anything in the chat, Kerry?
Yes. A new question is, how often can we share our news with you?
As often as you want to. We certainly have mark holders that are more frequently in touch, sharing their news. What we do is obviously try and keep it the newsletter to have new content in it each week, but we would never sort of say no, we're not sharing that because you had something included last week. So please do send across news whenever you have it, and we will try our best to get that scheduled for you. Obviously with our social media, please do let us know if it's time specific news, because we have an agency that does our social media scheduling for us, so they tend to do a lot of that in advance. But obviously it's not a problem to then include other things, but we just need to know if there was an urgency to get things shared, then we'll prioritize that for you. Any other questions?
No,
No?
right now.
Okay.
Okay. Elena so is asking as well, what is the best way to share news?
Is that in terms of how to share it with us?
Yes.
The easiest way is probably just to email it to us, to either directly to myself or to the marketing inbox, or you could, if it's something that you're already sharing on your own social media, then you can tag us into the post and we can reshare it for you that way, or you can do both. It's really what works best for you.
Got it, thanks.
Okay, I think if we don't have any more questions at the moment, if I hand over to Julie and Kate, and then I think we're doing quite well for time, so we should have plenty of time for some Q&A afterwards as well. So over to you, Julie and Kate.
Sophie, I think we agreed that Kate would go first.
Yeah,
I think she's
fine.
got the slides ready, so
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll defer to Kate and then come in afterwards.
That's fine. Kate, I'll make you co-host now so you can share your screen.
That's great, thank you. And thank you, Julie. That I don't know whether it makes whichever of our jobs easier or not in all of this, but I will go for my bit. And first of all, I think let me just say how fantastic what Sophie's talked about actually is. I probably, every time you speak about this stuff, Sophie, I think I really must
Yeah,
make more use of this. And probably what I'm going to talk about is less about the kind of marketing side. I don't know why my screen share's loading, so bear with me because it's not actually, it's taking, there we go, right, I can then do something. So there are all those opportunities. I think the bit I'm probably quite good at doing is being able to tag and share and pass on probably, and I'm more LinkedIn than anything else. So I do take advantage in those ways, but probably not as much as I should. So take that learning, folks. It's definitely worth it. So just what I thought I'd do is give you a very brief rundown of what we do as Social Enterprise Acumen, and then talk a little bit about the reason for me for the mark and how we use that. And I was going to just give you a little bit of anecdote about how I even used it this week, and we're only on Wednesday, so quite a few things going on there. So I actually run kind of two organizations, of which technically only one holds the mark, which is Social Enterprise Acumen, but I do want to talk about the other one as well because they're a little bit intertwined. But the reason we haven't yet got the mark is because we're not a proper social enterprise yet, and I'm absolutely in the place we could potentially go for aspiring, but I think I really want to just be sure that we do it when we're ready to do the mark. So you can see in the picture behind me, and I'll show you another picture in a moment, that there's a very old building there, and I'm sitting in a room in that building up in Houghton-le-Spring in the northeast of England, halfway between Durham and Sunderland. So we're one of the reasonably northern outposts, I think, in England for the Social Enterprise mark, and very proud of being up here in the northeast. So Social Enterprise Acumen, I founded in 2010, and we are quite small. So we are probably one of the smaller mark holders. And our role is effectively to be there to help make the opportunities for social entrepreneurs and social enterprises to be better than they ever have been, and particularly up in the northeast of England, and we work quite a lot in Cumbria as well. So that's what we do, and we earn all of our income through doing that. We're 100%, partly because I deliberately set the organisation up to be a community interest company limited by shares, so that we actually can't get grants, which is one of the things that gets a little bit disguised, I think, sometimes with community interest companies, because a number of them are not really trading entities yet. They're still very much grant reliant. And then we also have this building, which is a bit mad. So this building is more than 500 years old. I'm hoping to do an archaeological dig. We've been told that we ought to call it a dirty weekend, and that would encourage people to come along and get digging with us. So who knows, you know, we'll try and get the branding right. But we're creating this as a home for social enterprises and social entrepreneurs in the northeast. But as I said before, we are not a mark holder for this building. We're a registered charity, so we'd fit some of the criteria, but it is not yet at the point where more than half of its income is coming through trading. We're trying to develop that, and I hope to get there in the long run, but at the moment it isn't. So I'm very, very keen to be sure that, you know, the mark is accredited, and that is so important for us. We're also members of Social Enterprise UK. We're involved in lots of other organisations like Locality and others, and local organisations, but it is only the mark that has that accreditation and proper checking process to see that we are what we are. So this just gives you a flavour of what we do. We work with other organisations, helping them look at their models, and I use the mark a lot in talking to them about what a real social enterprise is. So, for example, these two ladies are from a local charity that work with people with learning disabilities, and they have developed social enterprises. They're not yet at mark stage, but again, I talk about it when I deliver training on the mark. We teach people to kind of pitch and tell their story, and using the criteria for the mark becomes part of what we're doing when we work with people in that space, because it's about saying, this is who we are, this is why we do what we do. So we have a clear social purpose. This is our business model. This is how we trade. So this is how you can help us earn the income to carry out that social purpose. And then we're also able to tell people about the difference that we're really making in society. So we teach that and train that with people that we work with. A bit of an illustration, hopefully we'll have a mark holder for you soon, Sophie, in Gateshead Leisure Centre. So our local council are closing our leisure centre close to us, and we now have a community group that are setting up an enterprising charity, which will be definitely able to be a mark holder as soon as we can get the council to transfer us the building, which we hope to be in somewhere around about October, with an opening date in November. And this could then well be a £2.5 to £3 million turnover social enterprise operating up in the northeast. So all of those things are important. And when I'm working and negotiating with this group with the local council, they know about the mark. And we're in a process of negotiation with the head of procurement as well as the head of leisure services. And when I'm talking about that, she's saying to, oh, can I talk more about the mark? Because we want to be spending our money in Gateshead with organisations that put money back into our local economy. So having the mark is that very good demonstration. If the council procure services from those local organisations in their area who are social enterprises, that's exactly where that money's going to do. It's not going to be extracted and going out to shareholders out with the area who are in it for private gain. So that's kind of the space that we're working in. And very briefly, I mean, why do we need it? Why do we do it? Well, it gives us credibility. So in this last, well, just over a week, I was in London on Monday. Was that this Monday or last Monday? Lost the plot. Anyway, within the last week or so, there was an event with the Labour and cooperative parties. And as it happens, the Shadow Minister for Business is called Johnny Reynolds. He was born and brought up in Houghton Spring, where our building is, which is very useful. The Shadow Education Secretary is also from our area. But what was there front and centre of what he was talking about was that he sees social enterprise with a place in the Department for Business. So if he becomes the business secretary, I'm not being party political at all, but depending on what happens in the next election, then we're seeing social enterprise potentially much more front and central, and thereby distinguished from the more voluntary end of the voluntary sector. And so for me, that is about saying we are trading businesses, but with that social purpose. We do work in a whole set of spaces with corporates and SMEs bidding for public sector contracts. So big contractors. I'm doing a lot of work in Cumbria with organisations like Sellafield, BAE Systems. We're doing some work in Barrow, and they're wanting to be sure that there are real social enterprises coming forward to be part of their supply chains. And people pretend to be social enterprises, which I never thought was a thing. So there is that whole kind of piece of how do you demonstrate that legitimacy? And again, a conversation yesterday, we are trying to support organisations that genuinely want to be social enterprises, but I'm seeing more and more where they're tagging a social enterprise alongside something else. And I was having a conversation with another organisation that does business advice and supports social enterprises, but they have two organisations, one that for themselves, one is a social enterprise, one is not, and they use them whenever it suits for what they're doing. That is not real social enterprise to me. You know, I talk, as well as the social enterprise mark, I talk about the prod test for a social enterprise, because there almost is, if you ask the questions, you really do start to find out whether somebody's a social enterprise. And the answer I got back when I was saying, so why do you do that? Well, we want to work with people. And even if they're not social enterprises, there's some really nice people doing private business. And I'm saying, that's fine. I'm not saying anybody running a private business or a small lifestyle business or anything of that sort is, you know, part of the dark side, the evil world or whatever. What we're saying is there are real social enterprises out there, and they're people who are really, really doing the job in terms of running a trading entity that actually is delivering that social purpose and can prove it through the mark. And I think trying to make sure that we have that real credibility in the sector is so important, because, and I haven't particularly alluded to it here, but the conversations we're also having, again, this was this week in our region, the northeast of England, one of the first contracts is coming out from our big sub-regional area is for social enterprise support. Now that's good, because that takes it ahead of standard business support in terms of timing, but the challenge will be, are they genuinely, you know, whoever wins that contract, it's actually too big for us to bid for, which is one of those really sad things that often happens in this world, and we have to work out who we partner with. But none of the people we're partnering with are genuine social enterprises or could partner with. So that's a challenge for us. So I do use the mark as a test, I suppose, in a whole set of ways. Sophie, you alluded to the whole thing of demonstrating our own social value. So it does make that easier for us. I think, and a bit of a challenge back to social enterprise mark, we've still got to big it up more and more and more. So the more of us that, you know, pull together to actually say, no, this is real social enterprise, the better. But this is how we use it. We use it principally in our world of, you know, we have to stand up and say we are a proper social enterprise if we're going to genuinely help people that want to be social enterprises too. So more than happy to answer questions at the end. There's a slide there, and Sophie's got the slides if she wants to pass them out afterwards. Mainly pictures, as I have to say. But delighted to be a mark holder and always happy to talk to people about the mark. And I suppose the way I use it most is just by talking about it. It's on my slides. I do talks to universities. I do all sorts of other things in different settings. And the mark is always part of what we talk about. So use it, because we really want to be sure that it's genuine social enterprise that out there that's making a difference in society.
Thank you so much, Kate. That was brilliant. And then I'll go across to you next, Julie.
Thanks, Sophie. I don't have any slides to share today, so I'm just going to talk. Most of what I want to say is echoing pretty much what Sophie's guidelines covered off, and get Kate's sentiments about the importance of the mark. But let me give you an introduction to Cosmic, to those of you who've not met me before or not heard of Cosmic. So we are 27 years in the making now. We were established as a social enterprise back in 1996, and we have very proudly flown the flag for a form of, a legal structure, but also a way of doing business in all of that time. I was a part of the group that helped set up the social enterprise mark, and I always like to claim that we were mark holder #1, which the cooperative always argue with me about who was first, but I like to think we were first off the mark with the mark. And we have, and that was back in 2008, 2009, and during that time we have very proudly included in most of the ways Sophie described, have included the logo, the imagery, across our website, across emails, across our social channels. We have regularly commented online about the value of the mark. Please don't judge us based on what's going on right now. We're going through a full rebranding process, and we're about to launch a new website. So Sophie, my apologies, because I know we won't stand the test here today, but it will soon be back in order and very high profile on our web and on our social channels again very shortly. Like you say, the only excuse I've got there is a very major rebranding exercise for us at the moment. And during that rebranding process, we spent a good deal of time with the branding agency describing what the mark means to us, what social enterprise, credible social enterprise means to Cosmic, and how we portray that in our branding narrative, not just in the imagery. So I think we've achieved a space now ready for the coming weeks to give it a good launch. We've reached a space now where we are re-articulating what that means to Cosmic, and of course the mark plays a big role in that. I'd also like to echo Kate's sentiments around, it's not just what we're doing online and with our own marketing efforts. For me, it's very much, as an ambassador, it's very much about how I talk about the mark in the various places and groups that I find myself in. I'm in the hotel room in London now. I was in Parliament all day yesterday. I'm off to the BT Tower later. We're doing some lobbying around digital skills with government yesterday and today as part of a wider network looking at the issues of digital inclusion and digital skills. That is the primary social objective of Cosmic, and has been across all of our history. So, helping and looking at ways to improve digital inclusion sits at the very heart of our social impact. So yes, yesterday, with various MPs and people over at the House of Commons reception, talking about the ongoing and increasing importance of digital inclusion across all factors of society, individuals, businesses and organizations. But it also gives me a chance to talk about the credible version of social enterprise as demonstrated by the mark and our ongoing commitment to the mark. And there are still lots and lots of people who don't know the mark, and don't know what it signifies, what it represents, and the credibility brought forward by the annual review process. So I was talking to an MP yesterday about, how that credibility is achieved by submitting ourselves to a process that is external, and therefore gives us, verification on what we say in our annual reports and annual impact statements. So, very of the moment for me today, yesterday and today, to be talking about that. But that's just an illustration of regional opportunities as well as national ones, to talk about the mark. There's an interesting debate that I'm very, very in the middle of at the moment, which is about B Corps and the growth of B Corps in the UK, and whether they, you know, whether they sit comfortably. I'm talking with Lucy, Sophie as well about this. How comfortably do they sit alongside the mark? You know, I know there are already several mark holders, or at least 2 or 3 that hold both B Corp and SEM, and Cosmic is looking at that at the moment, and in discussion with various people about that, including Lucy. So, you know, the growth of the B Corp organisations, I think, is interesting, and I think we as mark holders should be alert to those and encourage debate going forwards about, you know, the alignment piece and how that works. But I also see my role as social enterprise ambassador as one that supports other social enterprises on a one-to-one basis as much as anything. So, you know, those that are evolving and emerging, I'm always keen to support and debate with leaders, you know, in those organisations, the merits of certain legal models and of, you know, the mark itself and what it stands for, because I think, you know, there is a strategic and tactical piece about me using the conversations yesterday and today and others, but there is also, you know, one social enterprise at a time type of approach that I think is still as important as it was back when we, you know, first held the mark. So I think that's pretty much my description of how I approach the social enterprise mark ambassador role, and I'm looking forward to questions from the group, actually, so I'm not going to go on for too much longer, Sophie.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, Julie and Kate. That was really interesting. It's been really nice to have a perspective from 2 very long-standing mark holders of how you both differently use your mark. So do we have any questions for either myself or Kerry or Kate or Julie?
All very quiet.
Quiet.
Well, I'll just, as people are formulating their questions, I love your one social enterprise at a time bit, Julie, which is really interesting. And so yesterday I was speaking with somebody who I met through a leadership event, and she runs a social enterprise. She's one of the Women in Social Enterprise 100 winners, all sorts of great stuff. But what she's got is a very complicated setup, because she got really poor advice right at the beginning. So she has a limited company and a community interest company sitting next door to each other. And you kind of want to just go, why didn't somebody 7 or 8 years ago, when she set all that up, give her some advice and be able to get to the point where, you know, she genuinely wants it to be a social enterprise that would meet my mark criteria, and I think I'll be able to help her kind of disentangle some of that, but she's got started on the wrong foot. So the maybe is a little bit more thinking that might be something for us about, do we think better about how we get to people as early as we possibly can, to say, well, this is how you really do set yourselves up in the right, not about legal structures particularly, but about, because I've been talking to her about, well, maybe there's something about golden shareholdings that actually, you know, lock in the social mission. It doesn't mean she has to completely change what she's got, but nobody had ever talked to her about that sort of thing. So, you know, there is a piece, isn't there, somewhere around about how we really build. Again, we've both used the word credibility, this clear credibility of these are real social enterprises that are running businesses truly for social purpose, that reinvest.
And if I may, Sophie, I'll echo Kate's call back to you guys to, you know, to really sort of take hold of that agenda. I think, you know, the timing is perfect, you know, politics and what's coming down the line. I would urge the mark organisation to start developing campaigns, to start developing a real, you know, sort of set of collateral that we as ambassadors now can start sharing with, you know, you know, on a broad basis, but just have at our fingertips when we're in those conversations to say, you know, these are the people to talk to, these, you know, these are some case studies, this thing. I think, you know, the time is of the essence right now to get this message across.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Judy, and the point about building up to the next election. We are involved in the early stages of a national campaign that's being run by Social Enterprise UK and other national partners. So we're definitely going to play a very big part in sort of this next plan. I think the working title is Business Plan for Britain at the moment, but I think that's evolving, but it's all around sort of the future of business for the next government to take on. So we definitely want to see social enterprises being a bigger part of that. And what you said earlier, Kate, about the shadow minister saying that he would put it in Department of Business and Skills. I mean, that's what people in the sector have been lobbying for years. I think for as long as I've worked in the sector, I've heard people lobbying about that. So that's definitely what we're working towards. But that's a really good idea also, Julie, about putting the collateral together. And for that, it would be really great to have more case studies. So yeah. I'd urge all of you on the call to get in touch with us about that. So if we could have a really, really good, strong collection, like a library on our website of case studies to...
I think what would really help, sorry to cut across you.
Yes, okay.
What would really help, just thinking on my feet here, what I think what would really help would to have case studies that mirror either the sort of sector that an organization is in, or the sort of life stage of their development, but some really easy, accessible material that people can directly relate to get the assistance and support that they need. I think that would provide, you know, a very accessible but also a very effective way to support others thinking about this right now.
Yeah, great idea. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions at all?
Well, if you don't have a question, has anybody got a good example of what they're doing so we can learn from you as well, because we don't have the answers of all of them. They're being very quiet out there.
I can't put them to sleep.
Well, there's at least 3 people accepted my LinkedIn invitation, so thank you very much, all of you out there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, like I said earlier, we are sending a follow-up email with links to a lot of the resources that I've mentioned, and hopefully you'll all be connecting with each other offline as well, because that's a really big part of being in the social enterprise mark community is that you're sort of working together and getting to know each other. So I definitely recommend that you all connect with each other after the event.
And I think one of the things I might say, you know, I talked a little bit before about, you know, contracts just coming out in the Northeast. This is the UK shared prosperity funds, but this will be happening in all sorts of other parts of the country, where even if you're not a deliverer of that sort of contract, you could be a beneficiary of it, because there seem to be more funds. A lot of local authorities, combined authorities, are very specifically putting funding into support for the social enterprise sector. So if you can genuinely show you are part of the social enterprise sector, you can be a recipient of that sort of support that's out there. And I think that, you know, could show some opportunities, particularly for smaller organisations or organisations that are in some form of scaling or growth. So lots of opportunities to look out for at the moment. We've just seen a local university setting up an institute for economic and social inclusion. That's new. There's a rate, there's a real sense of this space of doing business for good in the right sort of way.
Yeah, and things like that, we always keep our ear to the ground, and we share a lot of things like that in our weekly newsletter as well. So as well as sharing your news and events as mark holders, there's also stuff in there that's useful for you as well. So do keep an eye out on those. I think then if we don't have any more questions, then I'd just like to thank you, Julie and Kate, again for joining us. That was really insightful and useful. So thank you for your time, and thanks everyone for joining us. And hopefully we'll run another of these sessions in the future. But have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Sophie. Thanks, everyone.
You all.
Bye.
Cheers, thank you. Bye.
Bye.